You're listening to The Straight Line on MRN.com, presented by O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day. And also brought to you by Hercules Tires. Ride on our strength.
Welcome to MRN's The Straight Line, presented by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Hey, everybody, Ralph Shaheen and Blake Alexander. Good to have you here with us.
Yeah, thanks for scoot up the road here in Charlotte, and then I get to do this with you guys. It's a good day.
Yeah, he drives that Pronto-backed Ford Mustang funny car, and as far as where Doug Herbert is, we literally have no idea. Truly, we don't know. We were just talking about it amongst our production team. Nobody knows where Herbert is. Probably flying around somewhere, but Blake's here going to fill in, do a great job. Let's talk a little bit about how your year's been so far. Kind of up and down?
Yeah, a little bit up and down. I mean, we started off the season, purchasing a brand new team, and we knew it was going to be a little bit of a process going into it, and new crew, a lot of young guys on our crew too. So I'm proud of where we've come to. We started qualifying well as the year's gone on, and you'd think it would pay dividends. We haven't won as many rounds as we wanted to, but last race we were qualified 5th, and we think if we keep poking ourselves up there in the top half of the ladder, that'll come around.
But you hurt some pieces and parts doing that, right?
I mean, not in qualifying. We had an intake valve drop at the actual race in the first round, so we probably would have. I mean, I don't woulda, coulda, shoulda walked away with it and won, but the intake valve dropped right at half track, and I didn't really know. I thought it just had a cylinder out, and I stayed with it and couldn't see him, and then the body went flying off of it.
Well, as you get this new team going, what's the team doing really right, and what's the one area you really need to work on?
I mean, I guess just the communication of all of us has been going really well, just the servicing of the parts in the car and all that. And then there's been a few little mistakes up at the top with me driving. I probably should have known better than keeping my foot in it there. But a lot of guys told me that, like Robert Height said, that you kind of know like when the car is hurting itself, but you also are taught to win. And if you can't see the guy, you keep your foot down. So it's a little bit of a balancing act, and I think about it every day, but ultimately I wouldn't change anything because I want to win.
So when you're in a car with 11,000 horsepower, I mean, even when it's running right, it sounds like everything's coming apart. How do you know the difference? What did you hear? What did you feel?
Well, I knew we were slowing the clutch down at the middle of the track too, so I thought when it was slowing down right there that might have been that, parlaying into the car slowing down, but ultimately it was 2 cylinders are being out on each side, which, is trouble. And I think that even on a really good run, like you said, it sounds like there's something that's not right with it, but you want to it's going to make it to the finish line one way or the other on race day. And, I unfortunately that time there was a parts failure.
This is a challenging time to fire up a new team, isn't it? And so what types of hurdles are you having to clear that maybe you didn't see as you were drawing out your business plan to do this whole thing?
I mean, I really haven't seen any hurdles. Obviously, I think it just costs a little bit more than you think when you start doing it, and it's just the hidden costs of it, and that would fall under the hurting parts. But everything's going really well on the business side of it, and I mean, we have great sponsors, and I had people jump in and help me once the car got hurt. So it was always like it was always going to be a learning process. It always was a long-term thing. It was never that I thought I was going to buy a team and then I was going to be beating up on John Force and qualifying and on race day. But to this point, we have a car that runs 281 miles an hour to the 8th, and that's what all the big teams were doing. And we've got a car that can go over 325 miles an hour. So, I mean, we're making a lot of power. We're making some good choices. And I'm proud of Dan Wilkerson and Joe Serena, Brandon Burgess, all the guys who are working really hard at the shop and getting this thing ready so that we can come back out in Sonoma and prove ourselves to everyone. Yeah,
the West Coast Swing is getting ready to get underway, but you're going to skip the first round. You're going to pick up in Sonoma where we had great luck last year.
Yeah, everything went really well there last year. I mean, it was kind of a methodical approach, as I know everyone says that you take it one round at a time, but I woke up and it was a normal day, and at the end of the day, we were hoisting the trophy and it beat Tony Schumacher, so it was a good day, and all race days start out like that, and sometimes they end up like the one we were just talking about, and sometimes they end up like you're a winner, and it's a day you'll remember forever.
As you get into this West Coast Swing, what can we expect out of the team? Obviously you feel good about Sonoma. How about Seattle? Where do you think the team will be the strongest?
Well, Sonoma, you really know what to expect from the weather. Seattle, not so much. It seems to change a lot more up there. And I've never raced at Seattle as a professional, so it'll be interesting to go up there and kind of learn. We have, a good tune-up for both places, and we'll be ready to make it down the track the first run, and then kind of like I said in elimination, your qualifying approach is methodical as well, where you take what the track's given you, but on Friday night you really have to kind of press.
Yeah, so skipping Denver, I assume, is just because you don't want to mess with the altitude when you're a little unsure, not wanting to hurt parts and raise the budget. Is that kind of the call?
Well, I don't have a sponsor for that race specifically, and I run the races that I have, over 150 Pronto Service Center members at. And then there's some other events that we go to that are even bigger than that. But most of the time, it's all contingent on how many people we can bring out to the racetrack to have a good time with us. Obviously,
you want to be in the countdown and all that. How will you approach the rest of the season as you work towards that part of the year?
We just kind of go to every race, and it's pretty much the same. I mean, that's how it was before, and it's always been that way. It's that you go to the racetrack and you're trying to win. And
well, I guess what I'm getting at is like, which events are you going to be coming to? You were talking about where your Pronto dealers are at and so forth.
Oh, yeah. Well,
how much would they find you at, their fans, if they want to see you in action?
They'll see me in the countdown in St. Louis and Dallas and Pomona, and I'll be running, like I said, some of the races here on the Western Swing. So they'll see me intermittently here and there.
Okay. Well, we're just getting this conversation started. And have you ever had a chance to talk to Ohio George?
I have not, but I hear he's a Hall of Famer.
You like gasser racing?
I do. I always enjoy it whenever I'm up in Norwalk. I get to see it.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk to one of the true legends of the sport. Ohio George Montgomery is coming up with us here on the Straight Line.
If your vehicle isn't stopping like it used to, visit O'Reilly Auto Parts for a set of Brake Best Select brake pads and 2 Brake Best Select rotors. And you'll receive a $25 O'Reilly gift card by mail. Enjoy quiet, safe, worry-free braking. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better prices every day. Limit supply. See store for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Hi folks, Mike Bagley here. At MRN, we rely on equipment from Racing Electronics.
Joey Logano to the lead on the back straightaway.
Racing Electronics has scanners and headphones. We can listen to every uncensored conversation between driver and crew.
You won the championship, baby, yeah!
And when we need live audio, in-car cameras, and up-to-the-second statistics, we use their latest handheld unit called Legend. To learn more about these products and many others, visit racingelectronics.com. Racing Electronics, the official two-way communication partner of MRN.
Pocono Raceway is summertime. It's where kids are free and everyone's welcome to camp out for the weekend. It's where fans can shake hands with the most famous drivers on earth. It's where tailgating is serious business. It's where first-timers hang out with old-timers, and the racing's always a little tricky. Bring your friends, bring your family, just bring it, Pocono style. The Gander RV 400, July 26th to 28th. Kids under 12, free all weekend.
We are back ready to talk some drag racing here on MRN's The Straight Line, presented by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Ralph Sheen, Blake Alexander, and joining us, Ohio George Montgomery. How you doing, George?
Oh, pretty good.
Well, thanks for being on the show. I know you've been inducted into the 2020 class for the Motorsports Hall of Fame, and boy, you racked up a whole bunch of titles, and most of those coming in gas class racing. How proud are you of being in that Hall of Fame now?
Oh, pretty good. I thought they kind of forgot me, really. They kind of skipped over, and I really didn't have an eliminator bracket back in those days, and some of the new people didn't remember who I was. So anyway, no, I'm glad they picked up on that.
Hey, George, how you doing? Blake Alexander. You used to race all the time, right? It wasn't just a weekend event. I remember Indy, I think, was the only national event at first, but there were a bunch of different events that you could go to during the week and kind of segue into, your races.
Well, in the early days, I just kind of raced it. Yeah, they didn't have the major, just had the one nationals, but that was in the NHRA. Of course, there was Cordova had the World Series of Drags. There was a lot of stuff, but it wasn't like it is today, no. As far as racing during the week, that didn't come until much later on when some of the tracks had Wednesday night racing and stuff.
Okay.
The thing that always amazes me, George, about drag racers from your era is the match racing. That is something that is just, I'm always intrigued by that. How did you set up your matches? Was it usually from the promoter calling and say, hey, would you come run this guy? Or was it something where you found a couple of buddies and said, hey, let's put a little tour together?
No, it was usually always promoter. I did have a booking agency, the Gold Agency, Ira Litchi, up in Chicago. He was part of Ben Chris stuff, US 30. But match racing didn't really start, or at least they called me till, I'll say in the early 60s. After I won the Nationals a couple times, some of the tracks was realizing I was a badass drag racer. And they and they kind of wanted me, and a lot of the track promoters and some from the booking agency. I didn't really call them; they was calling me.
Who would you say you had to race against the most? That was your rival back in the day.
What was that again?
Who was it you'd say you have to race against the most? That was your rival back in the day at Indy or anywhere that you were traveling to.
You're talking about the toughest racers?
Yep, in the gasser class.
Probably Doug Cook was probably one of the toughest there was.
Mm-hmm.
He taught me a few things even. But anyway, the big four was Stonewood the Cook, of course with Doug Cook, K.S. Pittman, Big John Masmanian. But he had several different drivers at different times. John himself never drove, but he always had top-notch people and good equipment. The Stonewood the Cook car was probably, at the time, one of the best financed cars in drag racing. I think the early gassers pay, I'll say. But money wasn't everything yet. It was putting together a good package. Remember, the tracks we had was like racing on polished rocks. Our tires were no good. It was difficult. It was just different than what it is today, by far.
You talk about how crazy the situations were, from the quality of the racetracks, the racing surface, the tires, and so forth and so on, and the package was so important. How did you decide what you were going to run, car-wise, engine combination, so forth and so on? What did you feel like was the package that really worked best for you?
Well, I don't know. First, the early cars were our street cars, our street rods. And the early car I had was a 34 Ford. Of course, originally had a flathead in it. Then I put a Cadillac in it. And that was a pretty badass car for its days for a street piece. And then as things progressed, I put a McCullough blower on it. And that was a pretty bad car. That car today is in the Cartledge Museum. And that was a nice car. And Don Gartner's a good friend of mine. And he was commenting on one of his, when he was doing the inside drag racing shows, he was commenting about that car, and he said, George built this car when he was a teenager. He said he was a decade in front of the rest of the boys. But then, as it got more doing serious racing, that's when the Willies come along. I'm gonna build a car for racing. But remember, the rules always had to be, the car had to be everything legal for the street as far as lights, windshield wipers, and everything else had to be a legal street car. So anyway, that was where the Willie started. And then when I first built that car, I did put a Cadillac in it. And that one was with a 671 on it. Had to make everything. Couldn't buy another stuff to make it fit in. I raced that car. I won the Nationals in Detroit with that in 59 and 60. And then there was the rule change come along. In the beginning, it was 0 to so many pounds. Well, then they put a weight limit on it, so I was better off with the lesser cubic inches. We couldn't use all the horsepower I had anyway. Low gear was worthless. You had to start in second because the tires, the tracks were terrible. So I put a small block Chevy in it. And that was pretty good. Did well until I would always win the Nationals. I thought I owned that place. And in 1965, I got beat. Boy, was I devastated. The tires had caught up with the fact that we could use a little more horsepower. And of course, that was when then I went with Ford, and that was a whole game changer there. The camera they put in was just badass. But that was kind of the things on the engine change, why I used the different engines. Then Ford later on when I was with the factory, they wanted me to race with their current engine, and that was getting the Boss to work. That was tough. The Boss, that was a good NASCAR engine, but it was not a good drag race engine. Went to a lot of effort to make that work. Got some of their top engineers at Ford, and we worked 2 years to make a turbocharged program for that. Ran it. NHRA let me win 2 major events, and they it was too far engineered for their brains at the time, and they pretty well said don't bring it back anymore, and so that was kind of the end of that.
I see. So when you say nationals, you're talking about Indy, right? That's what you'd go to every year?
Yeah. I'm talking about Indy, yeah.
Okay, cool.
At the Nationals. In the early days, that's all we had was just the Nationals. The first 2 races was that I went to were in Detroit. And I was the first NHRA to win 2 national events. The first to win 3 national events. The first to win 4 national events. And the only one to win 2 national events at 2 different locations.
Pretty cool.
You talk about the Ford engine being tough, the Boss. What made it so difficult on the drag racing circuit as opposed to what the NASCAR guys were dealing with?
I mean, I remember the NASCAR, they run it pretty well, 1 RPM down at Talladega. The ports were too big, and the velocity was too small to make things work. I tried to make it work. I had some of the best help there was, and we just couldn't make it work for drag racing. Remember, I'm racing with guys like Sharpman, Nicholson, Chrisman, and they asked us to take our cameras out to put that Boss in. Wow. And we didn't like it, but they just assisted. But anyway, the engineer that helped me from Ford was a guy named Danny Jones. He was IndyCar. He said, let's make this think it's 2 4-cylinder offies. And that's kind of how we started. Remember, we didn't know computers then. It was all mechanical. So, and I had some best people that there were. Switzer, their best engineers. They made turbos. They made them for trucks, buses, all this stuff, but never something with a time element as far as turbo lag. But anyway, we did the first dyno test, getting up 950,000 horsepower with a supercharged Boss 429. Made the twin turbo setup on 1,800 horsepower. So, wow, thought we got a home run here. You go on the track, and the turbo lag was so bad, it would just go out and then just explode in uncontrollable horsepower. So anyway, I say this is when the engineers of Switzer said, look, I'm going to give you some very inefficient turbos. We're going to try to kill this turbo lag. But we killed about 600 horsepower doing that. But now I still got 1,200. That's 250 more than I had. So, yes, it was very good. But then I think NHRA got wind of that I killed this horsepower, and they thought I was playing games with them. And it really wasn't. So I say, they let me win twice, and they said, enough's enough. They thought I was going to just run this screw in to get more. Well, it wasn't that easy. And one thing is, that car was 30 years ahead of today's Pro Mods.
Wow, that's amazing. George, listen, I got to take a quick commercial break. Can you stay with us for a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, great. We'll be right back after this commercial break. We'll have more with Ohio George.
Here's your chance to win a set of your very own Hercules tires. Go to HerculesTires.com/MRN. Simply register, and each month we'll give away one set of tires. Hercules Tires has the value, selection, and industry-leading mileage coverage to get you wherever you need to go, no matter where the road takes you. Register now for your chance to win a set of Hercules tires at HerculesTires.com/MRN. Hercules Tires. Ride on our street.
You can grab a hot dog anywhere.
Hey, what'll it be?
But you can't always grab one from the trackside concessions where the guy's been slinging since you were a kid. 300 calories turning into 300 decibels, cheering Martin Truex Jr. until he clinches the win. Take a bite, and if you taste something greater, you're family now. The summer's heating up. Follow what could be the Toyota racing family's best season ever at toyotaracing.com. Toyota, let's go places.
NASCAR is a registered trademark for the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing, Inc.
To protect your engine, you have to change the oil. Right now at O'Reilly Auto Parts, pick up 5 quarts of Mobil 1 full synthetic truck and SUV motor oil for just $28.95. When your engine works extra hard, give it the protection it needs. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better prices every day. Limits apply. See store for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
We are back with more of MRN's The Straight Line, presented by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Ralph Shaheen. And Blake, you're up. You got one for Ohio, George?
Hey, George, how you doing? What do you think now? You're one of the first guys who kind of paved the way for professional drag racing. What do you think of it nowadays in the Pro Mod class and the other pro classes?
You know, I'm glad I did it when I did. The cost today is phenomenal. I didn't have any money back in the early days. But you know what? I made money and invested well, so I'm pretty good shape today. There's not very many guys can say that they can make money racing, drag racing, and I did quite well. Gardis and I are good friends, and we were talking about there's not very many guys can say they're millionaires today from racing, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
George, you dabbled a little bit with NASCAR and IndyCar as well, didn't you?
A little bit, yeah. That was when I got a little bit discouraged with some of the drag race stuff, and it was limited to what I did over there. Most of the stuff with the IndyCar was originally helping George Walther. That was Salt Walther's dad, but
yep.
Had figures in that a little bit, but that wasn't a real serious one. But the Indy Lights is what I got involved with in about 80, wait a minute. Yeah, about 86.
Mm-hmm.
When we did some of the dyno work with the turbocharged stuff, we did a Pat Patrick's shop in Indianapolis, the Sonny Myers. But anyway, Pat Patrick started the first, it was the American Racing Series, or the Indy Lights. And they were running the little Buick V6s. And I got involved with them, and we built all the engines and rebuild them all for 16 years for all the Indy Lights cars. We were the exclusive supplier of engines for those. It was I believe that was the first race engine ever guaranteed. The teams couldn't own them; they had to lease them, and it was guaranteed for 3 races or 1,000 miles. And of course, Buick was pretty touchy. They wanted no engine failures. Of course, we had specs on them. Now we're in the computers. We can control RPM, and we controlled this stuff. But anyway, I know that when I went up to the factory, they said, George, we want no engine failures. And I got a gold-plated ratchet in my showroom, in my trophy case, that I got from Buick for 100 races with no engine failures. So anyway, I built about 100 engines for that, and they was allowed to run them 3 races or 1,000 miles. They had to come back to be rebuilt. But we put really good parts in them and changed them probably more than they had to be to make sure everything was good. And the guys, as long as they put oil and water in them, they really couldn't hurt one of those motors.
When was the last time you made a quarter-mile run, George, and went down the drag strip?
Oh, I think it was 85. Well, right before the Indy Lights stuff started. But my heart wasn't in. I was only going to race once a year, and my heart really wasn't in it. At that time, I just had a little turbocharged four-cylinder Pinto, and it was pretty badass too. But and they did away with the class for that, and my heart wasn't really in it anyway.
Anything you wish you'd accomplished, George? Is there anything that got left out on the racetrack you wish you'd gotten?
You know, this last accomplishment when they just put me in the Motorsports Hall of Fame, I think that's a good cap to everything. That to me, that's a big honor. Remember, they only take 1 year for each of the racing divisions, and I'm one from drag racing, and I felt that was a big accomplishment.
Well, it certainly is. I'm sure your family's proud of you, and it's cool that you got to get that accomplished. And it's been quite a few years up and down the road for you.
Yeah, everybody, is called congratulate me on that, and it makes me feel well. I don't get around like I used to. And so much while I get depressed that I can't do the things I used to do. But I'm 86 years old now, and I guess I'm lucky to be around and do and have the mind that I've got.
You know, George, all of us that grew up in the generation of the 70s, of course, Evel Knievel was legendary to all of us. At the time, you know, considered one of, if not the biggest stars in the world. And you actually worked as a mechanic with Evel.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, what with Evel did you work on?
He had this show where he jumped over 14 Greyhound buses down here on Kings Island in Ohio, about 20 miles away from me. And he got in a spot, and he needed some help in a hurry. And some of his friends told him to get a hold of me. So my son went, and I went down and helped him out. Remember, his show was only a couple minutes, but when he puts on a show, it's got to last for a couple hours. So there's other things. He had some wheel standing dragsters that Ideal Toy built, and I took care mainly of that stuff. Every now and then he'd tell me, he said, George, put my helmet on and go out and do some wheel stands for the guys. And I kept those running for him. I didn't work on the motorcycle. I worked on all the other mechanical stuff, plus help manage his shows. And Evil's a good guy. He loved me, and we became a very close one-on-one relationship, if you know what I mean. I had no bullshit. I did it like it needed to be, and Evil at times would do things that you'd wonder, maybe there'd be a night or so before he's going to jump, whatever he's going to do. I think there were stories around her, but he did a lot of drinking. I will say this, he never did any drinking before he did one of his gigs. But he'd ask me maybe on a Friday night or something, he says, why in the hell did I promise somebody to go to do a stupid thing like this? And I'd turn around and say, he was probably drunk. And he'd have to say, yeah, maybe you might be right.
You know, George, I know there are stories that there were times when Evel would, like you just said, question what he agreed to do. Were there ever times you'd have to talk to him on a jump day and say, hey, man, you got this?
Not really. You know, if he promised somebody was going to do it, he did it. But, you know, maybe in his own mind, why did I promise this? And there'll never be another guy like him. And especially with the equipment he did it with then. Some of these guys that are so-called doing this, duplicating his jumps, is so much bullshit. Because they're not doing it with equipment like what he did it with. They've got some bikes today that you can do this stuff with. Evil did this on old Harley. And not made for jumping. Don't have the fork travel. Don't have all that stuff that the others did. Different man. And Evil, yeah, probably promised stuff through his talk to do things that. But anyway, he would try to do whatever, and always wanted to put on a good show for the people.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me a lot of drag racing, where people always say it's like if you're on one of the worst prepared tracks and you're not in a perfectly set up car and you can still get it down the track, then you're a pretty good driver. But it kind of, back in the day, you guys definitely dealt with a lot more no glue on the track, and like you said, the tires weren't perfect, so you really had to drive the car back then.
Oh, it was it was animals. That gets another story. After I got with factory Ford would for one place they rented a track. Their engineers there helped the Ford racers. Then at this time I had the Camber and the Willys, and it was an absolute animal to drive. I'm lucky to be alive today. But anyway, the engineers was seeing that, and they said, "Wow," and they knew then I had to shift it. I said, "Yeah, I get busy. I mean, between driving and shifting." They said, "You need to keep both hands on the wheels." Ford made me an automatic shifting automatic then, which was unheard of. But anyway, that was one of the first things they did. And the next was that Willys was the first drag car ever to go in the wind tunnel. And we found out then some of the big reasons, because it had so much, at 125, it had a 600-pound lift over the rear end. This is back in the days before they had wings and stuff on the cars. But the Willys were it was the first car, as far as I know, to ever go in a wind tunnel. And we found out then it wouldn't work, and it just wasn't made to go that fast.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. George, listen, it has been a real pleasure to have you on, and as somebody that got to see Evel Knievel jump back in the day, man, those are legendary times, and love the Gasser stories. Congratulations on the Hall of Fame induction, and it's been a real honor to have you on the show.
Glad to be with you.
All right. Ohio, George Montgomery, true legend in drag racing, motorsports, all in all. We'll be right back with more Straight Line after this.
Welcome to the Speed Sport News Center. I'm Derek Consiglio.
Suzuki presents Speed Sport.
These are guys that you can take anywhere in the country and they can win on any given night.
Oh, what a great shot.
When you purchase your parts at O'ReillyAuto.com, you can pick it up in-store when it's convenient for you. Your parts, tools, or accessories will be waiting at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store. No shipping cost, easy returns, and convenient pickup. Shop O'ReillyAuto.com. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
NHRA drag racer Doug Herbert here to talk about safe driving. In early 2008, my two sons were killed in a car accident that was caused by speed and inexperience. After the accident, I learned that over 6,000 teenagers each year are killed in car accidents, so I formed a nonprofit organization called Brakes. Brakes stands for Be Responsible and Keep Everyone Safe. Please visit our website at putonthebrakes.org to learn more about responsible driving and what you can do to keep our roads safe.
We are back. Final segment of MRN's The Straight Line presented by O'Reilly Auto Parts. I don't know about you, Blake, but I can always use a free set of tires. And our friends at Hercules are giving away a free set of tires every month. All you have to do is register by going to HerculesTire.com/MRN. You're signed up for a free set of tires. That's always a good deal, right?
Sounds like a good deal to me. I don't know why you wouldn't do it.
Your tire's probably a little bit bigger in the back end, a little smaller in the front end than what are on my car.
Yeah, hopefully they don't order the ones that I order because they won't make it too far.
Yeah, they probably don't give those away, right? Tire bill on those are a little bit stiff. Something that is not stiff these days, ticket prices go to an NHRA race. There's a lot of great events coming up on the schedule. Everybody's getting really excited about the West Coast Swing. And if you want to come see any of these events, what you do is you go to NHRA.com, click on that red ticket tab in the top right corner, then you are all set to go to the Dodge Mile High Nationals, the NHRA Sonoma Nationals, or the Magic Dry Organic Absorbent NHRA Northwest Nationals. Those last two events, you get to see Blake in action. What do you think? You like this idea? Which I know obviously you're excited about Sonoma.
Yeah, these are really three of the best events on tour right here out west, and the weather's nice this time of year. It was a little hot in Denver last year, but it's pretty nice everywhere you go to out there, and it's a good time to go out there. Sonoma is really one of the most impressive events I've ever been to.
Yeah, that's hometown area for me, so I'm all about that one. What are you going to do between Sonoma and Seattle?
I'm staying in San Francisco for a couple days, and then I'm flying up to Seattle and going to stay on the water with my wife somewhere up there, and then I'm racing go-karts against customers, so hopefully I don't get my butt kicked too bad by one of the customers. I held my own at the last customer race I did and won, but it's always a risk.
It's kind of one of those things you almost have to let the customer win, no?
I don't know. I think you're supposed to, but I never
you
get
can't
that
do
far.
competitive sidekicks in.
I can't get that far.
Yeah. Well, I know you do a lot with charities and stuff too, don't you?
Yeah, I have before. I've had some charities on the car, and I think we got the red light, green light coming up, and we're going to talk about that.
That's exactly right. This week we don't really have a red light thing because the green light is really pretty cool. Riley Children's Hospital is up in Indianapolis, and I'm sure whenever you go up there for the U.S. Nationals, everybody's talking about Riley Children's Hospital. A lot of racers, no matter what form of competition they're a part of, Riley's Children's Hospital is a very popular charity for a lot of racers. And this past week, Tommy Johnson Jr., Antron Brown, Jordan Vandergrift, and Austin Prock went to visit the kids at Riley's Children's Hospital, and they got involved and did some little drag racing stuff with them, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, it's always good to see the guys giving back. You don't really realize the pedestal you're put up on when you do this, but when you come down and bring it back to a childhood level, you, A, remember why you started doing this, and B, realize the impact you can make on individuals, especially ones like them.
Yeah, and the Riley Children's Hospital, they do such a great job. That's a fantastic charity over there.
Yep. Yeah, I know TJ's carried it on his car for a little bit, and Megan Schumacher and everyone at DSR does a lot of work with them to, kind of give back.
Yeah, tip of the racing visor then again to Tommy Johnson Jr., Antron Brown, Jordan Vandergrift, Austin Prock. Great job, guys, in taking some time during your downtime to make those kids over there at Riley's Children's Hospital smile. Excited to go racing again?
Yeah, I'm excited to go racing. I'll be a fan this weekend and enjoying it, and I appreciate you guys having me out here to do all this, and I think it'll be a good time out there.
What is something we should keep an eye on for the rest of us that'll be watching the race from Denver? As we're watching it unfold, what should we be looking for?
Well, the cars barely even want to start up there. They're so deprived. There's no air up there, and the fuel pumps are smaller. The blower numbers are higher. So some parts can get hurt. It'll be exciting from that perspective. And also you can just look to see some of the time slowed down, but you can still run big mile an hour up there once you get the thing moving.
It's tough to hold your breath when you're in sea level when you're driving a funny car. How tough is it in a higher altitude like that there?
Well, I mean, it's really strange up there. Just there's no downforce on the car, and obviously you feel a little bit lightheaded when you first get there, and it's a hot day and you're working all day. So it just ends up turning into a little bit of a tougher event for everyone: the crew guys, the drivers, the tuners, obviously, and you can't even feel your parachutes really hit there. So there's always a challenge, no matter what aspect of the race you're looking at, and when you add it all together, it's tough.
I haven't heard anybody talk about the parachute part of that. Tell me the sensation, how different that is to, say, running at Sonoma.
They're just basically not as much for it to grab onto up there, and it's an uphill track and slows you down. But I actually, on one of my first runs there, I thought there was so little downforce on the car down track, I shut it off early, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. It just was that the car doesn't feel as planted to the ground on the top end when you're pulling G's and going over 300 miles an hour.
Okay. Well, Blake Alexander in the Pronto back Ford Funny Car, thanks for joining us. Best of luck at Sonoma and Seattle. We'll keep an eye on you. Thanks for joining us here. Ohio George Montgomery. It was awesome having him on the show. This is MRN's The Straight Line, presented by O'Reilly Auto Parts. We sure hope you enjoyed the show. And Doug Herbert, wherever you are, look forward to seeing you back in the studio, buddy. I'm Ralph Shaheen. So long for now.